Did you know that one of the most nutritionally powerful seafoods ever pulled from the ocean was once eaten daily by ancient coastal civilizations, not as a luxury, not as a celebration, but as ordinary food that kept ordinary people extraordinarily healthy? Did you know that this seafood delivers more bioavailable zinc per serving than most supplement pills on the market? And that zinc is the mineral your immune system, your brain, your skin, and your reproductive health all depend on to function correctly? And did you know that this seafood has the same complicated history with scripture as shrimp listed as forbidden in Leviticus, then redeemed on a rooftop in Joppa when God held out a sheet and told Peter that what he made is clean? Most people think of this as an expensive restaurant meal, a special occasion food, something reserved for anniversaries and celebrations. The ancient world that ate it every day by the coastline would not recognize that description. Today we are going to talk about lobster, wild lobster, what it actually contains, where it came from, what the Bible says about it, and why the people who ate it every day along the ancient coastlines of the Mediterranean were running biological systems that most modern people cannot match with any supplement stack they buy. Stay with me. Picture a rocky coastline somewhere along the ancient Mediterranean. The water is cold and clear, and the rocks along the shore are draped in dark green seaweed that moves with the tide. Before dawn, while the sky is still a dark violet above the eastern hills, men are already in the water, pulling traps, hauling lines, working in the cold salt air the same way their fathers worked and their fathers before them. This was not sport fishing. This was not a weekend hobby. This was survival. And the lobsters they pulled from those cold, rocky traps were not going to an expensive restaurant. They were going straight to the family table before noon. Ancient Mediterranean coastal communities ate lobster the way inland communities ate bread, regularly, without ceremony, because it was there and it was abundant and it kept them strong in a way they could feel in their bodies without ever needing a scientific explanation for it. Roman coastal settlements along the Adriatic and Tyrrhenian seas harvested lobster as a daily protein source. Ancient Greek fishing communities along the Aegean pulled them from rocky coastal traps for centuries. North African coastal populations that traded with the early church ate them grilled on open fires beside the sea. This was not a luxury food. Luxury came later when lobster became scarce, when coastal ecosystems were depleted, when the distance between the ocean and the dinner table grew wide enough that something common became something rare. For most of human history, if you lived near a rocky coastline, lobster was just dinner, and dinner turned out to be one of the most nutritionally complete meals any of those people ever ate. But before we get to the nutrition, we need to stop at Leviticus, because if you have read the Bible or grown up in a tradition that took the dietary laws seriously, you already know what is coming. Leviticus chapter 11, verse 10. Whatever in the waters does not have fins and scales of the fish in the seas or in the rivers, that shall be an abomination to you. Lobster has no fins. Lobster has no scale. Under Mosaic law, it was explicitly unclean. And for observant Jewish communities throughout history, that line was never crossed. So how does a video about biblical food include lobster? The same way the shrimp video did. Acts chapter 10. Peter is on a rooftop in Joppa. He is praying. He is hungry. The midday meal is being prepared below him, and the smell of the sea is in the air, and he falls into a trance. Heaven opens. A great sheet descends held at its four corners, lowering itself slowly toward him. And inside the sheet are creatures of every kind, clean and unclean together, all of them in the same sheet, lowered from the same heaven. Rise, Peter, kill and eat. He refuses 3 times, and 3 times the voice answers, what God has made clean, do not call common. The sheet is taken back up, and Peter is left on that rooftop trying to understand what just happened. Within hours, he is walking into the house of Cornelius, a Roman sitting at a table he never would have approached the day before. And the meaning unfolds. The wall came down, not just the wall between peoples, the wall between what human tradition had called forbidden and what God had always called his. The early church that spread across the Mediterranean coastline after that moment ate what the sea provided, all of it. The coastal believers in Caesarea, in Antioch, in Corinth, in Rome, they lived beside the water. They ate what came out of it, and the rocky coastlines of the ancient Mediterranean were full of lobster. What God filled the sea with is clean. And what he put inside lobster specifically is one of the most remarkable nutritional stories most people have never been told. Now, zinc. This is the mineral the entire video turns on, and most people have no idea what zinc actually does inside the body or what happens when they do not get enough of it. Wild lobster delivers approximately 7 milligrams of zinc per 100-gram serving. For context, the daily recommended intake for an adult man is 11 milligrams. For an adult woman, it is 8. A single serving of wild lobster gets you more than 60% of the way there. But the number is only part of the story. Here is the part that changes how you think about supplements. Zinc from whole food sources, zinc bound to proteins and amino acids in real food. The way it exists in lobster is absorbed and utilized by the body significantly more effectively than the zinc in most over-the-counter supplements. The synthetic forms of zinc used in pills, zinc oxide, zinc sulfate, are absorbed at dramatically lower rates than food source zinc. Some research suggests that the bioavailability of zinc from animal protein sources like lobster is 2 to 3 times higher than from supplement forms. This means a single serving of wild lobster may deliver more usable zinc to your cells than a standard zinc supplement pill. Not because the pill has less zinc on the label, because the body cannot use what it cannot absorb. The ancient coastal communities that ate lobster regularly were never zinc deficient. Their immune systems were running at full capacity. Their wound healing was efficient. Their skin was healthy. Their hormonal systems were balanced in ways that modern populations eating processed food and taking zinc oxide supplements to compensate are quietly struggling to replicate. So what does zinc actually do? It is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body. 300, more than almost any other mineral. It activates the enzymes your immune system uses to identify and destroy pathogens. It is required for the production of testosterone and other sex hormones. It regulates insulin signaling and blood sugar response. It is essential for taste and smell. It controls the protein synthesis that heals wounds and builds new tissue. It supports the integrity of the gut, lining the barrier between what you eat and what enters your bloodstream. When zinc levels drop even slightly, even subclinically, the effects are everywhere. Immune function slows, healing takes longer, hormonal balance shifts, taste dulls, the gut becomes more permeable, energy drops in ways that are hard to trace to a single cause. Zinc deficiency is estimated to affect over 2 billion people worldwide, not in developing countries alone. In wealthy, well-fed Western populations where food is abundant, but real animal protein has been quietly replaced by processed alternatives. Wild lobster addresses that deficiency at the source, the way God designed nutrition to work through food, not through a bottle. Here is something most people have never considered. Wild lobster is one of the richest dietary sources of copper available from any whole food on Earth. A single serving delivers over 200% of your daily copper requirement, more than double what most people get in an entire day. Most people have never thought about copper as a nutrient they need. It does not get the attention that iron or zinc or magnesium get, but what copper does inside the body is genuinely remarkable. Copper works alongside iron to produce red blood cells. Without adequate copper, your body cannot properly absorb and use the iron it takes in, even if iron intake is sufficient. Low copper is one of the hidden causes of anemia that standard blood tests often miss. Copper is also essential for the production of collagen, the structural protein that keeps skin firm, joints flexible, and blood vessel walls intact. It activates the enzymes that cross-link collagen fibers into strong, durable tissue, skin that ages well, joints that hold up under decades of use, arteries that stay flexible into old age. All of them depend on adequate copper working alongside the collagen building process continuously. And copper protects the brain. It is involved in the synthesis of several neurotransmitters and plays a direct role in myelin production, the protective coating around nerve fibers that allows electrical signals to travel efficiently. When copper is insufficient, that coating degrades. Nerve signaling slows. Cognitive function declines in ways that often get attributed to aging when the underlying cause is nutritional. The coastal communities that ate wild lobster regularly were getting more copper than virtually any other dietary source could provide. They were building collagen, maintaining brain health, keeping their red blood cell production running efficiently through one food that delivered more than any supplement combination could assemble. 2 more nutrients worth understanding. Vitamin B12. Wild lobster delivers over 140% of your daily B12 requirement in a single serving. More than enough to cover the full daily need and then some. B12 keeps your nervous system working. It maintains the protective coating around nerve fibers. It allows your brain to produce the signals that travel to every organ and muscle in your body. After 50, the body's ability to absorb B12 from food begins to decline, and the fatigue, the memory problems, and the tingling in the hands and feet that follow are often dismissed as inevitable aging when they are frequently a nutritional deficiency with a straightforward solution. A serving of wild lobster addresses it completely, without a supplement, without an injection, through food the way the body was designed to receive it, and selenium. Wild lobster delivers approximately 80% of your daily selenium requirement per serving. Selenium activates the enzyme systems your body uses to neutralize the most damaging free radicals produced by ordinary metabolism. It supports thyroid hormone conversion, turning inactive thyroid hormone into its active form. And it works alongside zinc in regulating immune response, the two minerals amplifying each other's effects when both are present in adequate amounts. Wild lobster delivers both simultaneously, in bioavailable forms, through one meal. The ancient coastal people who ate this regularly were not supplementing. They were eating. Now let me tell you what happened to this food. Not to lobster itself. Lobsters still exist. The ocean is still full of them along the rocky cold-water coastlines where they thrive. What happened was the story that surrounds it. Lobster was not always expensive. Through most of American history, it was considered a poor man's food. Servants and prisoners in colonial Massachusetts reportedly complained when they were fed lobster too often. It was so abundant along the northeastern coastline that farmers used it as fertilizer. It was ground into fish meal and spread on fields. Then two things happened. Coastal populations grew. The railway connected inland cities to coastal ports, and suddenly, a food that had been so common it was embarrassing became something you could charge a premium for in restaurants far from the sea. The price went up, the perception changed, and lobster quietly transformed in the public imagination from an ordinary coastal staple into a special occasion luxury. Today, most people eat lobster once or twice a year at best, and when they do, they eat it at a restaurant drowned in clarified butter, served with sides that overwhelm the flavor of the lobster itself, priced at $30 to $50 for a portion that would have fed a whole family along a colonial New England coastline. The nutritional story got buried under the price tag. Meanwhile, the people who still live on coastlines in Nova Scotia, in Maine, in the Azores, in parts of coastal Portugal and Norway eat lobster regularly, not because they are wealthy, because they live where it is caught, because they still know what it is without the restaurant around it, and their bodies reflect that knowledge in ways that are not coincidental. There is also this: the farmed seafood problem that affects shrimp and salmon does not affect lobster in the same way. Lobster is extremely difficult to farm commercially. Almost all lobster sold in the world is still wild-caught, still pulled from traps along rocky cold-water coastlines, still the same food that ancient coastal communities ate. The ocean did not change what it put inside the lobster. The only thing that changed was what we were willing to pay for it and how rarely we reach for it. I want to take you somewhere. It is late afternoon on the coast of ancient Caesarea Maritima, the Roman port city on the Israeli coastline where Cornelius the centurion lived. The city Herod the Great built to face the sea, marble columns and stone breakwaters, and a harbor engineered to handle the ships of the Roman Empire. Peter has just arrived. He walked in from Joppa, a day's journey down the coast, and he is standing inside the house of a Roman officer, something that would have been unthinkable to him 48 hours ago. The household is gathered. Cornelius, his family, his servants, friends he has invited in anticipation of this moment, all of them waiting for whatever Peter has come to say. And before Peter speaks, he looks at the faces in that room. Romans, Gentiles, people outside every covenant he had grown up inside. And he says something remarkable. You yourselves know how unlawful it is for a Jew to associate with or to visit anyone of another nation. But God has shown me that I should not call any person common or unclean. Any person. The vision on the rooftop was about people, but the principle ran deeper than people. What God made is not common. What he filled the sea with is not unclean. What he placed in the rocky, cold-water coastlines of the ancient world for coastal communities to pull up in their traps before dawn is not something to be looked down on or avoided or misunderstood. The early Christians who received Peter's message and spread along the Mediterranean coastline went back to their fishing villages and their harbor markets and their cooking fires, and they ate what the sea provided, all of it, without guilt, without confusion, with the same gratitude that Peter walked into Cornelius's house, with the gratitude of someone who just learned that the table is wider than they thought. Lobster grilled on coals beside the harbor, flatbread warming on a stone, olive oil and garlic and fresh herbs from a pot on the porch. The same meal, the same coastline, the same God who filled the water and called it good. 3 things to take home. The first is about sourcing. Almost all lobster sold in the world is wild-caught. That is genuinely good news. The farming problem that ruins shrimp and salmon does not apply here in the same way. What you are looking for instead is freshness and origin. Maine lobster and Canadian maritime lobster from Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are among the cleanest, most sustainably harvested lobster fisheries in the world. They are managed under some of the most rigorous quota systems of any seafood fishery on Earth. When you buy Maine or Canadian lobster, you are buying the same cold, clean water wild lobster that northeastern coastal communities have always eaten. Frozen lobster tails are a practical option. Look for wild caught on the label and a short ingredient list. Lobster and salt. That is it. If there are additives listed, put it back. Whole lobster is always better than just the tail. The body and the legs and the joints contain meat that most people discard, along with minerals and compounds that the tail alone does not provide in the same concentration. The second is preparation. The ancient world did not serve lobster with drawn butter and a side of mashed potato. They cracked it open over fire and ate it with their hands alongside bread and olive oil and whatever herbs grew beside the path to the water. That is still the best way. Split a lobster tail lengthwise. Brush it with cold-pressed olive oil. Add crushed raw garlic, fresh dill or thyme, and a pinch of sea salt. Grill it flesh side down over high heat for 4 to 5 minutes until lightly charred. Flip it. 2 more minutes. Squeeze fresh lemon over the top as soon as it comes off the heat. No cream sauce. No elaborate preparation. Fire, oil, garlic, herbs, lemon. The flavor of wild lobster prepared simply is completely unlike the butter-drowned version most people know. Clean, sweet. Something the ocean produced and the fire revealed. The third is the herbs. Same principle as the shrimp video. Grow what goes with it. Dill, the ancient biblical herb, is the natural pairing for lobster across every Mediterranean and Northern European coastal tradition. Pot on a porch. 10-inch container. 6 hours of sun. Plant once and it self-seeds freely for years. Thyme grows in almost any climate. Drought-tolerant, perennial, woody and fragrant and biblical, the same thyme family as hyssop that appears throughout Scripture. A single plant in a container by the door lasts for years and provides more than any one household needs. Garlic, always garlic. A clove planted in autumn pulled as a full bulb in summer. Zero effort, maximum return. God seeded the herbs. He stocked the coastlines. He told Peter on that Joppa rooftop that what he made is clean. The lobster was never the problem. The distance we put between ourselves and the sea was. Here is what I want you to carry out of this video. Lobster is not a luxury food. It is an ancient coastal food that got a luxury price tag attached to it when the distance between the ocean and the dinner table grew too wide. The biology has not changed. What wild lobster delivers zinc in a form more bioavailable than most supplements, copper in concentrations almost nothing else matches, B12 that keeps the nervous system running, selenium that protects the thyroid, protein that builds and repairs every tissue simultaneously. None of that changed when the price went up. What changed was the story around it. And stories can be rewritten. The early church ate what the sea provided. They lived on coastlines, and they pulled what God put in the water and they grilled it over fire with olive oil and herbs, and they were strong and sharp and full of life in ways that most modern people are spending significant money trying to chemically replicate. You do not need a supplement stack. You do not need a $30 restaurant portion drowned in clarified butter. You need a wild lobster tail, a hot grill, olive oil, garlic, dill, and a squeeze of lemon. That is the meal. That is the medicine. That is what God put in the sea. What He made is clean. What He filled the water with is for you. Go eat well. And if this changed how you think about what the ocean has always been offering you, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. We go deeper every single week. The sea is still full. The fire is still warm.